Right. Take Climate Pledge Arena, for example. We've been anticipating its opening for years now, but it's going to be open up 85 days from tonight for a concert, so it has to be on that deadline and be ready for fans. But Carpenters tell me it's about simple economics, not just real estate. Some of them tell me they pay $100 or more to park their trucks at various construction projects with their toolboxes, and they also want to be able to live closer to where they build. A lot of Northwest Union carpenters who usually quietly labor behind the scenes on major construction projects say if they decide to strike for higher wages, countless major projects all around us could face significant delays, like the Climate Pledge Arena, the light rail, and one of the biggest construction projects on the West Coast at Microsoft in Redmond.
There's going to be a lot of developers that want their buildings. That's going to be disrupted. You know, they're not going to get done on time.
We can shut it down, and if we have to, we will shut it down.
The Carpenters say they voted down 3 consecutive wage proposals from the Associated General.
I'm sorry, Andrew, what?
I can barely hear it. Can you turn it up?
Yeah, no problem. I don't know if I could turn it up much more than that. Let me check my sound. Let me see where it's piping in from. Give me a minute.
Contractors, because many of them say they can't afford to live or even park in Seattle on the job anymore.
I've worked with guys in Seattle who drove all the way up from the Canadian border in Ferndale.
The Carpenters say the impact of a work stoppage could delay the scheduled opening of the Climate Pledge Arena, which is scheduled to open up in October. 1,100 union carpenters work on the arena around the clock. The massive Microsoft construction project in Redmond employs even more carpenters, and they say they're serious about delaying the project to gain leverage for higher wages.
These men and women build not only Seattle, but all of the adjacent surrounding area. They work on dams, bridges, the highways, the tunnels, both the Bertha project, light rail. They do everything.
Is that the
I called the
Microsoft
Associated
campus?
General Contractors for a comment today. They say there's a non-disclosure agreement, so they cannot talk about collective bargaining at all. But the Carpenters are talking, and they say not only will they walk off the jobs, but a lot of other union trades will join them in solidarity. They say they will keep us posted about their next steps, and we will too. And tonight we're live in Seattle. I'm Gary Horker, Cover 7 News.
Seattle.
All right, so
Dinosaurs come alive! A massive riot!
let me kill this dinosaur ad here. Okay, so basically, we've had these rallies. I did do the news interview. The rallies have been fairly militant, but overall non-violent. There was an issue on Friday where a member of Socialist Alternative, who is a union iron worker, I invited him to speak actually, and he's been supporting our rallies for a long time, but so he's a Kshama Sawant supporter, and he got on the microphone, and most of what he said actually, like, about he mentioned like rent control and taxing the billionaires, like, you know, Jeff Bezos, like most carpenters were in agreement with, but he then like said that he was a part of like Kshama Sawant's campaign and Socialist Alternative, and
started promoting that,
and started stumping for Sawant, and there was an angry carpenter who I think was probably right wing. He was a pretty big guy, who basically kind of came out of the woodwork, out of the crowd, and was like, "I'm an ex-military veteran who fought in Afghanistan, and you're a communist." It's like, and like, you know, and so I had to diffuse this situation and say, hey, look, we're not here to have a fist fight, you know, especially not in front of the AGC's headquarters, where we're gonna all look like a bunch of dirtbags if that happens. And so, like, if you don't like, you know, someone here, if it's gonna come to that, you need to leave. I told him that, you know, and not I didn't tell the Sawant supporter this. I told the other guy this, and so yeah, I think he left. It kind of diffused the situation, but I mean, Sawant's still a touchy subject, and you know, and then the other thing is, well, like a lot of the Sawant supporters are kind of like bots, you know, they're just like that was definitely not well thought out to bring up Sawant. No. Yeah. Like, I mean, you know, I don't, you know, I personally have criticisms of Sawant, and I don't think it's a big deal to me, but it's like,
well, yeah, you talked about it before. We gotta be careful broaching it with, you know, because a lot of the working class in these trades are, you know, are
reactionary, right. and many of them have reactionary ideas, and then they're not educated on a lot of political subjects. And this is like, really, they got their tippy toes into politics here with the contract struggle, right? Yeah. And it's going to take some time and education. For those just joining us, I had some audio issues earlier. I know Andrew had some video issues, and so I think we've got it all kind of worked out. We got a workaround going. And so so that's. If there's any questions about what I'm doing in the Carpenters Union, by the way, and my work there, feel free to throw it out in the chat, in the comments, in the live chat, and I'll try to get to them before the show's over.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to move on to the next video we have here? That one's from a local news station, right?
Well,
and so
yeah. I can. Do you want like another video on the Carpenters?
Oh wait, okay, yeah. Hold on here. No.
Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, I was just like, I thought you had another video, but I guess I misread the link or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. All right. So
the other thing is.
So what's the current situation right now?
So the current situation is on Monday and Wednesday, I propose that we have our own independent organization of the Carpenters Union, and so basically a rank and file caucus. Though I didn't call it a caucus because, like, not everybody knows what a caucus is, and so I think it's just better to make things simple for everybody, and so I said, hey, we're gonna start our own organization, our own group within the union. We'll call it the Peter McGuire Group, and so that name was suggested by a member that was actually outside of the city in Portland, and so Peter McGuire is the founder of the Carpenters Union. He was a Lasallian socialist in the 19th century. And he was also a part of the Second International, the founding of the Second International. And he founded the AFL and the Carpenters Union. And I think he also founded like the Socialist Party in the United States, et cetera. And so he was like a big time influencer in the late 19th century. And because he's also the founder of the Carpenters Union, he's like kind of a hero in the Carpenters Union. I thought it was a pretty good choice to call ourselves that, despite like my own political disagreements with McGuire, because for one, it's going to help to educate other carpenters about our history, about like good parts of our history, because they're going to ask like, well, who is Peter McGuire? Why are we naming ourselves after him, right? Like, who is this guy? And then because a lot of people don't know our own history, and then the other thing is, our group is likely going to be attacked by the union bureaucrats, and I think, and it was brought up that it would be more difficult to attack us if we're named after the founder of the Carpenters Union, and so who's basically like the hero of the Carpenters Union. He's in like a lot of literature and stuff as being a hero of the labor movement, and so. Because a lot of the attacks are going to be based around this idea that we're trying to split or destroy the union, which is BS. And then the other thing is I was someone made a motion that I lead the Peter McGuire group, not myself. I did not introduce that motion, and it was seconded and carried and with a unanimous vote, and which was kind of, you know, took me by surprise, but at the same time, I mean, it's like, what do you do? I mean, you gotta, if everybody wants you to lead and they feel like you're doing a good job, I mean, you could say no, I guess, but I mean, I'm not gonna say no. It's like, you know, like I already have a target on my back, and
Yeah.
you know, and so, and I'm already have some political experience on these things, and a lot of guys already know I'm a red, you know, because I haven't, you know, even though I haven't broadcasted it the way some people on the left do, at the same time, I've never really tried to make it like a uber secret or anything, you know, where nobody can find out about it, like you know, obviously, like my portrait on Facebook is a, you know, it comes from communist propaganda. So anyway, so I am now like the leader of the McGuire group, of the Peter McGuire group, and so what I've called for is for independent meetings, and so right now we're in a process of finding out who can lead meetings that are independent of the union meetings. So that we can better coordinate our actions. And if we have to go to the union meetings to get some business done, we can basically send a team out there who can influence those union meetings. And then the other thing is we're currently in the process of building a platform and a program, and which I hope will not be too complicated. And you know me, Andrew, I usually don't conclude every article with some kind of program or platform. But in this case, with an organization, I think it is important to have.
Yeah, I mean, you need some,
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, I mean, it's not like a Trotskyist, you know, kind of article here, you know, I know.
And so, so currently what we have and what I've introduced to other members is that that for one, we want wages that are going to keep up with inflation, with the rate of inflation through the CPI, which is determined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then two, we want a maintenance of benefits clause. So we want our benefits, our health and welfare, as well as our pensions, to keep up and to be maintained. And then for three, we want leadership that's democratically, both politically held accountable and financially held accountable. So we have, like, our EST, for example, right now makes $300,000 a year. So her salary actually rivals a lot of CEOs for corporations, and which is way beyond what even a union carpenter makes. And so, which is ridiculous. And so a lot of members are very angered by this, and I think rightfully so. And so, like, I've maintained a consistent position that all leaders should basically have wages that are tied to our wage, they should be making carpenter wages. And like, and I've heard some arguments that, well, maybe they should make foreman's scale, which would be like 10% more, which, you know, to me, it's not okay. So you pay them foreman's scale, but if you want to do it that way, you know, that's not to me really. It's up to the membership body. But the idea is it should not be like CEO of a corporation scale, you know? And so, so there's that. And then the other thing is we're talking about the need for transparency and teaching union history of not only our union, but the entire trade union movement, which I think, and teaching, you know, educating the members on those issues would, on union history, would basically help to build political consciousness.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things we've been talking about as far as like a platform and a program are concerned. And in our right now, we're planning on going to our local meeting with the agenda that we want no more extensions, and so we want the locals to pass resolutions not only supporting a strong wage increase, which would be like $21 over 3 years, but also to reject any more contract extensions, which would help to make it easier so that way we can vote on a strike, which is what we want, because we've already voted to authorize a strike. But what that means is that the union leadership can authorize it at will, but they've chosen not to. That's why we're here. And so many of us think that if we, to get to have a decent wage package, it'll require a strike. And there's other unions like the Teamsters and the operating engineers the Teamsters have basically already authorized a strike, and we're looking at maybe the operating engineers. Those are the workers that control the cranes and the heavy equipment. They may go on strike as well. The Teamsters what's significant about them is those are the truck drivers, and so they're the ones that are bringing in material and furniture, and they're also bringing in the big thing that they're bringing in concrete. So concrete and aggregate materials, and which is huge, because without concrete, you just don't pour anything, and then you can't get your foundations going.
Yeah.
And so they have that critical pinch point that they control. And so that's what we're kind of looking at. And then on Tuesday, I've already called for a rally on Tuesday over at the Microsoft campus, which is the largest job site in the West Coast. So if we can rally over at Microsoft, I'm not saying we're going to shut it down, but if we can rally and we can pull like maybe 100 carpenters off the Microsoft job, that'll basically be a big show of force. And so the rally would be after hours. It wouldn't be during hours. And but having the Microsoft guys come out would be a big deal, and people all over the state is watching that job site and what those workers want to do. If they want to, I mean, I know a lot of them want to strike, and there's even been some talk of wildcats there. But I have not, I've only met with a handful of the Microsoft workers myself. And last week we showed a video for Microsoft, which was an exclusive for the Marxist line. And so yeah, like what they decide is really going to have a major impact on the entire Western Washington area. And because of the sheer size of that job, and construction workers tend to respect like other construction workers on bigger job sites. It's kind of like a weird seniority thing. That's like, it's like these guys are on that big job site and they're doing this. Why can't we do that? Like, or maybe we need to follow that.
Yeah.
And so, so anyway, so there's that, and that's going on.
All right. So what do you think? Well, I mean, do you think there'll be much movement before next week? For next week's show?
Yeah, there may be some more movement before next week. I mean, my phone has been like blowing up all week, and even after the show, I got to attend a online Zoom union meeting.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. The last Zoom meeting I was on, I was attacked. It was like 88 people on the call. It was almost 100 people on the call. And I was attacked by some of the cronies of the union leadership. Both of them were on the bargaining committee, and one of them, they're supposedly like rank and file members in the bargaining committee. One was like a general foreman, and I forgot the title of the second one. It might have been like a superintendent or foreman or something like that. And but anyway, both of them basically more or less attacked us. One attacked me and said I was a conspiracy theorist and that I didn't have any facts for what I was saying. Because basically I was saying, look, for the last like 4 contracts, you've been reallocating money from our wages to our pensions. And so you've been basically padding the wages on the, on the language on, when you present it to the members, and then you've been and fooling them into thinking that they're going to be getting higher wages than what they really were. And then you're basically putting it into the pensions that you weren't adequately funding. And then the other thing was, the other member, he said that like he was confronted on the question of, why don't we have a comment section? You don't want to like read our comments anymore. You don't want to hear our opinion on the contract, because on TA2, they actually had a comment section, like a survey, which I don't think has ever been done before. And on TA3, they got rid of that comment box. And so his response was, well, we were getting so many racist and bigoted and sexist comments and homophobic comments. I was ashamed to be in this union. But I kind of think that's BS. Like, I immediately said, look, like I oppose any form of bigotry. I don't care if it's racism or sexism or homophobia or transphobia. Like, but I think I kind of believe that might be a big load of crap. I mean, what I really think is, I think that they got flooded with angry comments where people were calling for heads, and so, which scared them probably. And so that's why they got rid of it. And then the other issue is, we had a business agent who came to our job site, and we had one business agent who came to our job site, whereas no, I mean, not to our job site, but to our rally on Friday. And there's been no other business agents that have come. And one of my sources tells me that the reasoning was because they were ordered not to. So even if there was a business agent that was sympathetic to us, they were basically ordered not to come by their boss, or they'd be fired. And there's only 2 delegates. One more thing is that we have delegates that have a dual role in that, which creates a conflict of interest in that, like, some of our own delegates. So these are delegates that go from our locals to the council, and they have officer positions, including the EST herself. She holds a delegate position, so she can vote on the policies that she's trying to implement. Like, a complete conflict of interest. So anyway, those are some of the things we're dealing with right now, and it looks like things are gonna march on here in the Carpenters Union. I'm gonna try to, keep everybody up to date through here, but I won't be like updating my Facebook too often about this, hopefully for obvious reasons.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Well, let's go on to. Do you want to give a mention on the death of on Richard Trumka?
Yeah. So
before we talk about Michael Roberts.
So Richard Trumka died, and I keep hearing from different labor, union groups, that, oh, he was a giant in labor. He was a giant. He was a giant in the labor movement. And but myself, and I know other union activists, other people that are in the union movement in the Marxist community, don't have many nice things to say about Trumka. He's basically been the labor the U.S. labor movement has been run into the ground under his leadership, and it's important to hold, whether he's dead or not. I mean, I don't care. It's important to have some kind of historical accountability there, and to prettify him. And just because he died or whatever, I don't care. Like that's bogus. That's not. We need to say, hey, look, he is not someone we need to be emulating. He's failed. I mean, if you look at like the AFL-CIO's response to things like Donald Trump, I mean, Trumpka was trying to get cozy with Trump, you know, he was helping to promote him. And then there's also like the Black Lives Matter movement, where the AFL-CIO totally failed to, to have like real support for the Black Lives Matter movement early on, where it could have. It definitely has the resources. Or if you look at like the lead and water crisis in Flint, Michigan, where basically their whole water supply was poisoned.
Yeah,
they did like almost zilch. They handed out some bottled water. Like, they have not gone. You know, Richard Trumka could have said, hey, we need to go on the offensive on a lot of issues throughout his term as the head of the AFL-CIO, and he has failed to do that 100%. And so, yeah, I don't see this as a loss, as a great loss for the labor movement. I understand that his replacement is like a total coin toss on who it is, and it's probably going to be, you know, more of the same. You know, it's not going to be like a major. I don't expect a major difference in leadership now that he's passed away with his successor. But yeah, I don't mourn the policies he's promoted, and I just see it as more opportunism. Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something we need to celebrate or mourn, really. Spend much time mourning.
Yeah. All right. Is that all you want to say about? I mean, I haven't got much to say because I don't know very much about him, because that's in the States.
Yeah.
Right. So, is that it, or do you want to go on to?
Yeah. Let's talk about Michael Roberts, huh?
All right. Yeah, we haven't covered him in a while, so fuck. I don't know. Everything's going wrong. I lost my notes for this one. Anyways, yeah. So basically, he's talking about this crackdown on China's financial sector, on them wanting to, on the financial sector wanting to expand their export of capital within China and abroad.
Right.
So, as we know, that's what Lenin called, defined as the highest stage of capitalism, imperialism. So, anyways, what do you think about? Do you want to? That's just a general overview. What other important points did you want to bring up before we kind of dissect this a little bit?
So China's had a number of crackdowns this year, right?
Yeah.
And against their own companies. So there's been like a crackdown on crypto, for example, because Chinese crypto mining operations. There's been a crackdown on Jack Ma's attempt to expand into financial capital, and then there's been also a crackdown on the Chinese education companies, right? Which I would say is kind of mixed, actually, as far as that goes. But so there's been like a few different crackdowns on some sections of Chinese capitalism. And so Michael Roberts attempts to tackle these. It's something I've definitely observed. So I don't think that Michael Roberts mentioned that the crypto crackdown is also tied to the fact that the crypto mining is so huge in China, it was literally draining the power supply of like the whole country. So this is like one sector of the economy that's crypto mining is incredibly energy intensive, right?
Yeah.
And so it's sucking out a freaking, the nation's power that all the other capitalists need for their factories and whatnot to run business. And so, yeah, there's a crackdown against that tiny section of the economy that's super power, intensive and power hungry, like literally for energy. And then, but it's that section is harming all the other capitalists.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that Michael Roberts really got into that too much, but but definitely that was definitely a part of it as I've heard about it. And
so what do you think about overall? Do you think China is starting to lose its control over the capitalist class? Or do you think that train is passed? It's gone. Like they've already lost control. Or do you think they have the power? Because that's always what goes through my mind with their like idea of trying to, your stated goal of transition into socialism is, that's been my question. It is like, I think it's it's very problematic that the capitalist class has grown to such a huge extent that it's not going to be able to be disciplined.
Well, it's very easy to see these crackdowns and to think that China is trying to rein in the capitalist class. Like people were saying this about about post-Soviet Russia during the 1990s oligarch years, when basically Vladimir Putin and was starting to crack down on a section of Russian oligarchs. And so similar things have happened in the past with other countries. With China, it's been like Jack Ma has been cracked down, but it's like, okay, so yeah, Jack Ma is like the richest man in China, but it's like the richest man in Russia. He was thrown in jail, right? It doesn't mean that Russia was anti-capitalist or socialist or anything like that. Even though they threw the richest man in Russia in jail, right, in prison, it was just a section of capitalists against another section of capitalists. And then if you look at Jack Ma, like the dude's a nutcase. Like, he's a total freaking nutcase. And so it's like, I am not surprised at all that a section of capitalists like is scared to let him build up more power, right?
Yeah.
And let him like run, get more power so he can run more of the show. Like if I was a capitalist, I'd be like, no, not at all, dude. We don't trust this guy, whereas, cause most of the capitalist class is actually, even though like, I think there's a lot of insanity going on with the capitalist class. Like I would say most of them do not want to go to like an extreme on that insanity level, like
Ma,
right. Well, with Jack Ma, they're not. It's a very like the capitalist class is actually fairly conservative, and they want to have stability, right?
Yeah.
So a threat to that stability is a threat to the entire class, and then the other thing is that kind of helps to explain, in my opinion, Jack Ma. And then and as Michael Roberts points out, is that Jack Ma had the Ant Group, which was expanding into like consumer financing, and it was going in, it was basically building foreign capitalist connections. And so Ma was basically becoming out of the control of the Chinese capitalist class. And he was basically leaving the club, and so that I think that was seen as a threat in China, and so that's what we saw. And then the other thing with the Chinese education stocks and education companies and their stocks and stuff, they're not. I don't think that they represent very, very powerful interests in China. It's like their stocks are like all penny stocks right now. And there's a lot of private Chinese education stuff, but it's a fairly new industry. I don't think that it's good to like really write them off as being totally cracked down just yet. It's just like private education in the United States, you know. There's going to be some back and forth on that. This could change next year, easy.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, and I think that, what Robert says about, it seems that we see a shift toward financial capital in China, and basically all the signs are starting to really link up and they're coming together. I mean, I think he's right about that.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I do too. I mean, that's the natural. I mean, you know, that was the inevitability of you know, part of what Marx talked about and Lenin. So, yeah, I mean, it's coming together. I mean, he says the growing size and influence of the capitalist sector in China is weakening the performance of the economy and widening the inequalities exposed during the pandemic. Indeed, it was the state sector that helped the Chinese economy climb out of the pandemic, not its capitalist sector. So, at the same time, I mean, so this is, I mean, how, I mean, do you think there will be a serious crackdown, or do you think China let their finance sector export capital?
I think the thing is that I do not think the question is not if, it's when.
When. Okay.
Yeah, it's a matter. I think it's a matter of when, because the entire theory of like monopoly capital and imperialism, I think from a Marxist perspective, is that finance capital is like it's like it gets to a point where it's completely uncontrollable. Yeah. And it's just due to the nature of finance capital, you know, itself.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. So
yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Anything else?
No. I think I did have some notes, but I fucked up I had problems with my computer. Reset my computer, forgot to save it. So yeah, let's go on to theory and state of movement and talk about this Hasanabi.
Yeah. So
reaction video.
So Hasanabi, here's our reaction of Hasanabi's reaction to AOC and the Democrats with the evictions and stuff. We should quick intro to Hasanabi. Andrew and we've come to the conclusion that it's impossible to ignore Hasanabi. Hasanabi is basically become a rock star, and he's got 30,000 followers on Twitch, not including YouTube. He's got thousands more on YouTube. He's basically the biggest streamer on Twitch. He's the only political streamer on Twitch now, because Andrew and I have left Twitch. We'd probably be like number 2 with our one viewer or two, and but he's left. He's still on Twitch, although his stuff is still shared to YouTube. And then and Hasanabi was a former commentator on the Young Turks. He's like the nephew of the guy who runs the Young Turks. Jank, I think his name is. And then and he often says that he has Marxist politics, and a lot of people say that. So but
I mean, and so here he takes aim at like this housing policy, which he maintains is the most important, though need to be fulfilled. Though I would argue it's actually food, but that's besides the point here.
Should we go ahead and just play it and then?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And there were many, and there was frankly...
So who's to blame here?
Well, I think there's a couple of issues here. First of all, you are absolutely correct in that the House and House leadership had the opportunity to vote to extend the moratorium. And there were many, and there was frankly a handful of conservative Democrats in the House that threatened to get on planes rather than hold this vote. And we have to...
Sorry, you cannot hear?
No. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Really just call a spade a spade. We cannot, in good faith, blame the Republican Party when House Democrats have a majority. Now, there is something to be said for the fact that...
Wait, the last thing I will say about homeownership is the main difference between someone who is locked into renting for the rest of their lives versus someone who is making home payments or someone who's making mortgage payments is access to capital. That's literally the main difference. And your cash flow overall and having a good credit score and a multitude of different things that make it so that you can actually get a loan to be able to put, and also have enough capital to put a down payment so you can get a loan and then pay off your house that way. In a lot of circumstances, yeah, you're not paying for like additional shit that goes wrong in your house when you're a renter, but ultimately, or you're not paying property taxes, but ultimately you're literally paying more with rent for the rest of your life. If you had like, I don't know, $50,000 or $100,000 that you had been able to save up, which you won't be able to because the budget shortfall is baked into your existence, basically, because being poor is very expensive, being working class is very expensive. You would be able to, at the very least, justify being able to get a loan and put a down payment so that you can turn around and pay mortgage on a property that you now own. And which is incredibly important for, again, generational wealth creation. Yes, rent scales with inflation while mortgage is locked over the 30 years. Yes, exactly. That's the problem. The mortgage rate prices in inflation. Yes, but not in the way that you think. Did you respond to Valkyrie about this? Yes, I did. Oh yeah, here it is. Valkyrie wants to do a nail
I'm gonna try to convince him to go get his nails done with me.
Yeah, we're gonna go to a nail salon or something.
For 4 months.
Anyway, let's get back to AOC.
This court order came down on the White House a month ago, and the White House waited until the day before the House adjourned to release a statement asking on Congress to extend the moratorium. This came after weeks. I sit on the Financial Services Committee, which has jurisdiction over housing. We had, the housing secretary there asking about the administration's stance. We asked the Biden administration about their stance, and they were not being really forthright about that advocacy and that request until the day before the House adjourned. And so the House was put into I believe, a needlessly difficult situation. And it's not just me saying that. Financial Services Chairwoman Maxine Waters has made that very clear as well. And so there's a couple of contributing factors here. We have governors who are also not getting this emergency rental assistance out in time, which is forcing this extension, what we would like an extension of the moratorium. The fact of the matter is that the problem is here. The House should reconvene and call this vote and extend the moratorium. There's about 11 million people that are behind on their rent at risk of eviction. That's 1 out of every 6 renters in the United States.
Congress is out of town for the next 7 weeks. Speaker Pelosi made it clear in a letter to Democrats last night she's not calling the House back. The Senate's here because they got the infrastructure bill. And you heard Manchin say that he thinks that the moratorium should be extended so that these tens of billions of dollars can get out the door. What's your response?
Well, listen, the House adjourned technically for 7 weeks, but I want to be very clear that due to the ongoing negotiations with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we were given very specific instructions that we are set to adjourn for 7 weeks, but every member of the House of Representatives is currently on a 24-hour callback notice in anticipation of that bipartisan infrastructure bill. So we all have left town with plans to come back within 24 hours if necessary. And I believe that the expiration of the eviction moratorium and having 11 million Americans, 1 out of every 6 renters at risk of being kicked out of their homes, is worth coming back and triggering that 24-hour notice. We cannot leave town without doing our job.
Can you explain to the American people why it is that these tens of billions of dollars that Congress has already passed to help renters, and also, we shouldn't depict, and you're not, but landlords, some of them are small business people. They need the money too, so they can survive. These are not all just Jared Kushner slumlord types, right? And so This money's there. What's the holdup? Why can't it get out the door?
Well, you know, this money was handed over by Congress and the federal government to states and local municipalities to dole.
It's kind of, oh my God. Okay.
Out. And what that means then is that each individual governor is responsible for establishing these programs. I think that in some states, governors and state administrations might be slow walking this process to get it out. In other states, the administrative burden of setting it up, but there are states and municipalities that have been getting it right. And we're at a point where, frankly, those state governments need to get it together, but we cannot kick people out of their homes when our end of the bargain has not been fulfilled. Out of the $46 billion that has
but we can when it is fulfilled. Like, we shouldn't do that.
Been allocated, only $3 billion has gone.
What's the left's opinion on small business landlords? Scum are okay. Okay, so here's the thing, and I've talked about this a billion fucking times, and it bears repeating every single time we talk about landlords, because people fucking have like opinions on this that are unfortunately too based in fantasized, idealized theory. Okay, landlords are still a parasitic form of making money. Okay, especially on non-commercial, straight up fucking what do you call it, like regular properties, like regular real estate that you need, because you're basically cutting off access to a resource. Residential was the word I was looking for. It's considered parasitic because you're basically fucking you're engaging in rent seeking behavior by shutting off access to a resource that human beings need to be able to survive. It is the most important need, shelter, okay? It's kind of the reason why we built societies, okay? So that we could fucking have shelter and protect one another. It's literally the most important thing. However, unfortunately, in the way that our capitalist economy has been organized, there are like people who have worked their entire lives, or who are now, 60 fucking years old, and own an additional unit or an apartment as their fucking nest egg, using that same parasitic concept. Okay, it's like being a leftist and having a 401k, because being a leftist does not mean you should fucking die when you can no longer work. You should still actively seek to protect yourself and actively seek to, build a future for yourself. So I've talked about the percentage of people that have, like, don't you literally own a square foot of land in England? Yes, I now do. I am a landowner. Anyway, because there is no functional way to ethically fucking survive if you have worked your entire life and don't have any capital. You can't just basically survive on Social Security. There's no such thing as pensions anymore, outside of like certain industries. And I guess thank you, Jonah's Book Club, for the 10 gifted subs. There's and pensions themselves are already like quite controversial to begin with. But because Social Security payments are not enough to fucking survive, then yes, some people some older people especially engage in, I have a pension, so that's not true at all. I'm talking about what are you supposed to do? Like, I have a pension, so that's not true at all. I guess, okay, if you don't have a fucking pension, then, fuck this guy's anecdote. Sorry, fuck you, dude. You don't have a pension? Well, this fucking guy does, dude. Sick. It's like saying, it's like an older person being like, well, I fucking bought a house, so that's not true at all. Oh, sick, man. Never mind. The fruits of my labor isn't your retirement money. Fuck your retirement, says Guillotine 2020.
I'm just gonna pause it for a sec, Andrew.
Yeah. Okay.
There's so many freaking ignorant ideas in the left. I mean, as you know, we cover this all the time, right? Yeah. And it's like, it's impaired people's ability to think about reality as it is. Yeah. And so I understand the issue that they're talking about, like, so AOC is talking about, like, so a moratorium on evictions, right? And then so someone's like, what about like the small landlords, right? Because, and so a small landlord is basically usually someone that has a house and usually has another house that they're renting out, right? And once upon a time, houses were actually a lot cheaper than they are now. They weren't all like $400,000, $500,000 pop, you know. And so this was actually possible. And so there's like questions. There's a lot of questions in the left and in the Marxist community in general, you know, the anarchists even, like, and there's a lot of questions of like, so what about the landlord class? This, you know, and what does it look like, and how do we define it, and how do we talk about it, right? Like, because there's landlords that there's landlord companies, right, that own, like, that they're basically, you know, corporations that have like apartments all over the country, you know, or all over the state or all over the city. And then there's there's banks, obviously, which act as landlords sometimes. And then there's also like these small proprietor landlords that own, like, you know, like in a house, or they might own a shed in the back of their freaking house, like basically a mother-in-law, or a shed in the back of their house, right, that they probably rent out, things like that. And so so there's a lot of, you know, there is some ambiguity there, especially with like when you consider stuff like, okay, so, you know, you're a lot of jobs, you don't make enough to survive regardless, and then your retirement, you know, for many Americans, and I'm sure Canadians too, your retirement's fucked. You know, like I know I have a pension, and I'm not even happy with my pension, you know, and so
I mean, I don't have a pension because I'm a small business
right
owner, so I don't have a pension, and I lived in Asia for 20 years, so I didn't 10 years, so I didn't contribute to a lot of years to the CPP, so
right.
I'm screwed unless I win the lottery.
Right. And then when we talk about, and it's the same kind of ambiguity when we talk about things like small business owners, like small capitalists, right? Or the petty bourgeois. And it's like, well, you know, they're not all doing well, like, you know, and it's like, really, they're like a stepping stone from poverty themselves. Like many of them are, not all of them, but, you know, many of them are, like you said, you don't have a retirement yourself. I mean, you own a painting company. I mean, I know guys that own landscaping companies where they are just like yourself. They do their own work, right? And so you do your own labor. So it's like you might be an employee of one, you know, an employer of one employee, and you're hiring yourself to do the labor, basically. Right. And so so there is some ambiguity here, and I think, you know, there absolutely, yeah, it's not always like cut and dry, and I think like Hassan's struggling to communicate this with some of his audience, like, you know, who I mean, some of his audience are young, and, you know, I know his audience is actually pretty broad. It's like there's young people and old people in his audience, but he's got a lot of leftists in his audience that are hard-headed, you know.
But you know, he's live, and it is, you know, I think this is one of these issues where, you know, he could make a, you know, he could, I don't know, make a video or something on explaining it a little bit, his view a little bit better, because it's not just simple as like fucking kill all the landlords and
right,
sort of thing.
Yeah, all landlords are scum, and it's like well, I also know I don't think he does separate videos. I think he only streams. Like, I mean, to be honest, we don't do separate videos either, so it's not like.
But we do post on. I don't know. We do post, and we do have our subreddit feed.
Yeah.
Our subreddit, so on those issues,
Right.
Anyways,
And so yeah, let's continue. I mean, I think this is pretty interesting discussion that he's getting into.
Money. Bro, You're fucking 14 years old. Please stop. Okay? Please stop. I dream of a future where there is no more need for fucking landlords. Okay? Not need, but rather there is no more. I understand that. I understand how wonderful it would be if people just simply utilized housing and shelter not as capital investment or an investment vehicle to make money, but rather as a place that you live, in and use as shelter. Having said that, though, currently in this day and age, good luck on one, gaining enough momentum to build a fucking mass movement that will forcibly remove people from their fucking houses, and then good luck having a take like that when you're talking about a 70-year-old person who's like, yeah, I own a fucking apartment, I can't go to work, what are you gonna do? Should a 70-year-old who owns a fucking additional housing unit like literally die? What's the take there? What's the advocacy? What's the argument in the absence of government interference and public housing and decommodifying housing, which would take years, many years? It's fucking psychotic to just be like, I don't give a shit. I don't care if you're, I don't care if you're 65 years old and can't live on fucking Social Security alone. I don't care that you like literally made all the money that you could and like waited for years and years so that finally you could fucking buy a house. And this is the only way that you can, again, survive. You've said how small landlords need that income because they're old or helping pay for the kids' education if they own another house. You've said how small landlords... Yeah, I did say that. A lot of that could be solved if there were appropriate public funding and appropriate public measures and social and safety nets that allowed people to fucking live without any additional help, any additional like retirement funds that they had to cultivate and put together. It's also an idiotic take. Like, we're having an argument about like a fraction of the landlord industry, I guess, and avoiding the real fucking main problem, the main source of the problem. I work in higher ed and I started my career in 2008. A pension option immediately went out the window as soon as my career began. Pensions are a wet dream for us. Yeah. Only 17% of Americans have a pension anymore. Larger problem is pensions getting depleted. It's a big factor causing this landlord lead situation, it sounds like. I wish we had appropriate government funds so that people didn't have to fucking be landlords, okay? In the absence of that, though, you're fucking, whenever you say shit like, yeah, fuck grandma, I don't give a shit, she can die, then you come across like a delusional psycho. Sorry, it's just the fucking truth. That's what I advocate for. Landlords should decide that since those safety nets don't exist, they can just build one out of the bodies of poor people. No, I understand it. Except they themselves are fucking poor. You make it seem like there's like, you make it seem like grandma's caked up. That's what I'm saying. Grandma's engaging in an unethical way of wealth creation for herself, but wealth creation doesn't always imply that you have fucking wealth. But again, it's really, really stupid that nobody's forced to become a landlord. It's the only greedy motherfuckers that want to gain capital in their status. Yes, I'm 14, and every single person that owns a residential fucking unit is actually, big bucks monopoly man over here. This is not a defense of landlords in general, but like...
I'm just going to pause it right here. We got a comment.
So, like, there's a lot of rent. I mean, most of the, like, people I know who have a second house are landlords or are not wealthy either. And on the pension thing too, I mean, I get it too. Like, my father was a pensions administrator for the government here, and yeah, I mean, it's simple. I mean, to cover the pensions and inflations, people have to give more and more and more and more and more into them, and there's a problem with them. So those are the 2 points. But yeah, I mean, this illustrates the problem of that we talk about in the left in general, of just like, that gets us nowhere, like fuck landlords and they can die as shit like that. I mean, it's you're never gonna make a connection to the working class with fucking idiotic fucking statements, like immature, like you said, 14-year-old statements like that.
Right. So, okay, Greg Butler in chat says homeowner with 1 or 2 apartments in their home isn't really a landlord. and their building isn't legally considered an apartment building, and that's different from a corporation that owns 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 unit apartment buildings. That's an actual landlord. I agree. Like,
me too.
But a lot of like people, and I would say mostly young people in the left, they don't have that understanding. You know, like they don't see that difference. And you know, and I don't, to be honest, I don't think it's like this major like social problem that like we got these leftist idiots that are, you know, and you know, younger people and stuff that can't make that distinction. But I get it. It's an issue. I mean, Hassan is dealing with a lot of these leftist idiots because he's on a, you know, on a platform tailored for younger people. And so I think like a good 20-30% of his audience is younger, like, you know, like Zoomers and stuff. But yeah, a lot of people I don't think, and I think it's mainly like in this kind of fringe left, like with the tankies and the anarcho kitties and stuff that don't get that yeah, like, you know, grandma with a mother-in-law in her backyard or whatever, or with a, you know, with an extra house that you know that she was able to get, you know, when you know, in an area where you can still buy two houses. I mean, you know, like it is not this on the same scale as, say, like, yeah, you're right, like a corporation that owns apartment complexes, you know, and whatnot. And so yeah, like we'll just carry on with this.
You have to be, you know, aware of what the fuck you're saying. Again, though, I'm like literally talking about, I'm an advocate for decommodifying housing. And we're literally talking about a fucking
drippiest chat on Twitch.
Small part of the overall much larger problem. So I hate having this conversation over and over again. Exactly. It's absolutely taking the bait off the industry, trying to deflect focus on grandma and her infamous cakes is dumb. Exactly. Thank you. And that's what's really fucking annoying, especially because, like, Jake Tapper knows that Jake Tapper knows the situation. I'm assuming he also personally owns a bunch of fucking houses too. It would not be surprising to me. These people haven't lived in dog shit apartments right next to their also poor landlord before in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. That's what I mean. Like, these fucking hella people that just, like, literally own an extra fucking unit and rent it out because that's their fucking, that's the only way they can, you know, have retirement. And I hate giving into this framing and then talking about it over and over again because there's like dumbass fucking people in my chat who are like, fuck those people, fuck those people. Sorry, but so long as those landlords are willing and able to forcibly remove people from their homes, this is violence, fuck those pigs. I don't have a problem. I agree with that as well. Don't get me wrong. Which is why I think that the government should offer assistance. This is the same energy as don't use plastic straws. That's why the planet is dying. Yes, there is no lefties, or there's no nuance when it comes to this conversation. Like, there are people who unironically can't lift themselves off their bootstraps. Like, I love telling slumlords who are fucking screaming on Fox News and on CNN about how, like, you know, they have to, they have to fucking evict people from their properties. Telling them to fucking pick themselves up by their bootstraps and get back to work is fun. And I agree. They should. Okay? But there's also the other side of this. Just like I tell you, literally fucking get a 401k if you can. Doesn't matter what you're doing, but you should absolutely plan for your own fucking future in retirement. Being a lefty, it does not mean that you should die at the age of 65 when you are no longer useful to your fucking capital-owning bourgeois bosses. And there's nothing you can do, unfortunately, in the absence of like significant systemic changes. You're just gonna have to look out for yourself and your own friends and your own family, and that's the reality. You can live in the nature for free. A tent isn't death. Okay, weird stalker. Are you gonna invest some money in houses when? No. But I do have a fucking 401k or whatever the individual version of that is. I have one. An IRA, yeah. And you should too. I mean, this is like, I literally don't even fucking have a credit card. So obviously, like, don't listen to me. I'm fortunate that I have people who are much, much smarter, like accountants and shit like that. You know what I mean? That can deal with this stuff. Hasanabi, who's saying a retirement account is unethical? Well, technically, capital ownership. That's owning capital and benefiting from capital gains as a form of
11 years.
Building a retirement plan for yourself. That's what it is. So from a Marxist point of view, yes, a 401k would be unethical. 100% it would be. It's literally, it's the heart of Marxism. It's in the heart of Marxism. It's just like you're not even any way remotely connected to the actual labor, and you're a faceless, lifeless unit that owns just like a tiny fucking piece of a multitude of different companies that exploits labor. So technically, you are literally fucking doing something that is what the bourgeois engages in. And I've talked about how 401ks have made it so that many normal, like, working class Americans, unironically, and believe that they are a part of the bourgeois capital owning class because of their 401ks, or operate that way. That's why they're always like, I'm checking the market. Oh my God, what is my 401k doing? Meanwhile, the reality is that the top 10% of wealth owns 90% of the fucking stock market. So if you're a part of the bottom 90% and you think you're a fucking capital owner because you have a 401k, you're delusional. You don't. But of course, under the American system, under the American late-stage capitalist organization of the economy, the gains in the stock market are privatized, whereas the losses in the stock market are socialized. So yes, when the stock market is doing poorly, your 401ks do poorly as a consequence of that, especially if it fucking completely blows up. Look no further than the 2008 housing market crisis to recognize that. Anyway.
On out to help renters and small mom and pop landlords.
No, it's crazy.
Do you think there are similarities between gambling and the stock market? Just curious. Yes. Yes. And actually smart fucking financial analysts who or people that work at hedge funds will tell you that it is gambling. Obviously there's fundamentals, so it's a little bit different than like straight up fucking playing roulette. It's like gambling when you know how to, it's like playing blackjack when you know how to count cards. But most people don't know how to fucking count cards. Day trading is straight gambling. Okay? Gambling also has fundamentals, yes. But most Wall Street bet Andes will either say, yes, it's gambling and it's fucking awesome, or they'll say, no, it's not like gambling at all, you're fucking stupid. But if you go and talk to like actual people in finance, they will tell you, like, of course it's like gambling. Day trading is not gambling, LMAO. Some people actually make bank doing it. That's literally what fucking gamblers say about, like, degenerate gamblers say about gambling, dog. So the non-Americans want to explain what a 401k is, they're confused. A 401k is basically a privatized pension plan that you and your company, if you're fortunate enough, puts a percentage of your fucking income into. Up to a certain level, it's non-taxable too. And it just basically sits there and accumulates so that when you fucking inevitably retire, you have a bunch of money. We don't have pensions in this country, unfortunately. Only 17%, apparently, according to Chatter. I don't know what the exact number is. But many jobs no longer offer pension plans, and they offer 401ks instead. And it's not money that you set aside. Yes, it's money that is going into the stock market. Just like pensions also go into the...
I'm just going to pause it for a sec, Andrew. I'll let you catch up here.
We don't have pensions in this country, unfortunately. Only 17%, apparently, according to Chatter. I don't know what the exact number is. But many jobs no longer offer pension plans, and they offer 401ks instead. And it's not money that you set aside. Yes, it's money that is going into the stock market. Just like pensions also go into...
I'm just going to pause it for a sec, Andrew. I'll let you catch up here.
Okay, there we go.
We don't have pensions in this
Yeah, so... A lot of, like, the, you know, people on the left, especially younger people, they don't understand quite how, like, the stock market works and how 401ks work, right? And which is kind of sad because it's kind of basic, you know, economics at this point. Like Hassan like mentioned that, hey, like you know, so if you have a 401k, so you have a retirement plan where you put money, that money goes into basically into a stock portfolio, right? And so you basically own like, you know, 10 shares of like a variety of different stocks, and you know, and you build up that share count, and so you're like technically a partial owner of Walmart or whatever the hell they put your money in. And so, but really, like, you're technically like a retail investor, right? And so it's kind of like, well, you're not, you know, you know, you're not some Warren Buffett or anything like that because you own 10 shares of Walmart. You know, like the amount of shares that you own of all these stocks is basically insignificant.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like people on the left that don't, you know, have trouble comprehending this. Like, and so that's adding to the frustration of Hassan. And you know, and this kind of goes back to what we talk about every now and then, is like just this total absolute failure to have like education in the left.
I mean, that's part of the problem. I mean, you know, even though I supported Occupy Wall Street, but there were a lot of people that didn't understand a lot of the dynamics in Wall Street,
right?
The stock market too. You know, it's not just simply, you know, kill all the stockbrokers, fucking shut down Wall Street and all blah 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 blah. I mean,
right.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of tied up into that, and the blue chip stocks and pensions and all of that. That, you know, of course we disagree with it, but it's not. It's, you need to understand a lot of the dynamics and how capital works before you can transform away from like some system like that. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's. So, yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to like last year with when GameStop first blew up and all the Wall Street bet stocks, right? Yeah. And there was like all these like people that call themselves socialists and communists and stuff that were coming out and like, "Hoorah, GameStop, you know, we're really fighting the man." And like that was total fucking bullshit, right? Like you know, whereas like you got all these like Wall Street bets Andes that are, you know, making millions and millions of dollars off of that, including like different hedge funds. Cause like, I mean, like when we were looking this up, they're
pointed that out. And even the GameStop said, "Listen, we know what we're doing. Don't hop in here unless you can't afford it. This isn't." Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it was like, yeah, Viva la Revolution. We need to buy up GameStop. Yeah, and it just goes to show there's a ton of ignorance in the left when it comes to like the stock market and how the economy works. And if you look at, I mean, we've looked at all kinds of like leftist articles and, you know, and different socialist groups that call themselves socialist and stuff for the past few years, right, Andrew? And it's like if you look at them, like how many of them, like, I mean, other than Michael Roberts, really tried to like do a deep dive into like economic, like real, like, you know, trying to understand how the economy works, you know, or what's going on in the stock market or anything like that. And it's like zero.
Yeah, and I mean that's what, you know, I mentioned this before, you know, because I'd go back and look at really, really older socialist groups and articles, and they've totally strayed away from this, from what Michael Roberts is kind of established here is like a primary factor in Marxist critique.
Right. Yeah, and if you look at like I mean, if you do like if you look at like I guess like the golden era of like the Marxist community and stuff, like, you know, like 100 years ago. I mean, it's like, it was actually not uncommon to see like, you know, different articles or pieces thinking about like the way the economy works, you know, like who's trading what, that kind of thing, you know, like, and then because and a lot of it's sadly gone, and it's showing. Like it shows in like Hassan's got 30,000 followers, right? And his chat is obviously loaded with a lot of people from the left, and it's like a giant garbage bin.
Yeah, that are just like yeah. I mean, sad to say, it's more it's filled with moral outrage instead of like scientific analysis.
Right.
Like what Marx talked about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and that's part of like my whole grounding too is, and why I'm so interested in economics is because, it's obvious you need to be able to explain what's wrong with it to move to something else, and that's what
Right.
Marx did. That's exactly what Marx did with capital. Anyways, should we finish this video?
Yeah, I think it's almost over. Let's finish it up here.
The stock market, for the record. All these daily streams.
That's it, I think. All right, so yeah,
Okay.
so then there's also this issue of like, I mean, this is kind of a side issue, right? But like, Hassan Piker, he has like this kind of friendly relationship with AOC, right? Which isn't really talked about too much. And that's been going on for like at least a year, where I don't know how well they know each other or anything, but they obviously know each other. And then and there's obviously some sympathies there. And so like I feel like there's like whenever I see him react to anything that AOC does, there's like I've never seen a criticism by him of AOC.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I mean, I think, I mean, I don't think that AOC is like the wicked witch of the left or anything, like how,
No.
like I see that sometimes in like,
but there are, yeah, I mean, we both had criticisms of her.
Certainly. And I mean, I think it's important to be honest about like AOC's politics and the position she's taken and that kind of thing, because she's obviously a rock star with like the Democrats and even the Social Democrats. But at the same time, there's also this kind of like far left analysis of her where she's like, like it's very, it's like, oh, she's a total traitor and this and that. And so it is important to have a balanced perspective that's factually based on this.
So I mean, overall, what did you think? What did you have? So on that, and having said that, what did you think about what she had to say here about Democrats?
Well, she mentioned that it was up to the governors to take the money, right, from the feds give it to the governors, to the states, and you have this states' rights issue or whatever with the governors distributing it, right, with like, but it's like, well, where's the accountability on that? How are the governors held accountable? Because it's and I didn't hear any discussion on that. I mean, I don't know if she did have
I think Hassan said he didn't know about that.
Right.
Is that one of the points?
Yeah, he didn't know about it at all. But even so, it's like the next question is, okay, so why are we, if the governors are not taking that money and then spending it the way the feds intended to have it spent, then why aren't they held accountable for that? Right. And so, because she's talking about, I think she's mainly talking about like Republican governors and stuff. And it's like, and that part was like not mentioned at all. I don't even think Hassan's own chat even got, caught on to that. And because there's this issue by the Democrats in general to pawn things off on, look, we did our part and then we gave the money to the Republicans and then they squandered it. And so it's their fault, not ours.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, well, where's the accountability for that?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, like what, and there's no talk about that.
Yeah.
You know.
Good point.
Okay. You know, and then there's other issues. I mean, I can't think of everything like off the top of my head right now, but
yeah.
But I know that like AOC is she's a very smart, intelligent woman. Like, don't get me wrong, but I mean, a lot of people in politics are intelligent, and she might be more exceptionally intelligent than others, but like she's definitely good at dodging and deflecting, maybe not from like her interviewer, but the important questions, like and it is important for the left to be able to hold politicians like her accountable on these questions without like totally going off the rails and looking like they came out of an insane asylum, because otherwise nobody's going to listen to the left or to Marxists or anything,
Yeah. No, yeah. Good point, yeah. And on that, should we end the show? You've got a ton of work to do still today, right? You got a Zoom meeting, and then I'm taking off to Canmore here to do some work for 3 weeks. But we'll still be doing the show.
Yeah, so let's talk about when we're gonna come back here, and as I said earlier in the show, if I've been doing work in the Carpenters Union. If anybody has questions in the chat, now's kind of the time to say before we wrap up the show completely. And so I'll take any questions about what I'm doing there. Like in the just type it up, punch it in the chat, and I'm reading. I'm taking I got my eyes on the chat right now.
Gregory's a carpenter, right? He was in the
yeah, he's a carpenter he was a carpenter in New York City, and I think he's got a new profession now. But
maybe also, could you maybe you should, or do you have time? Do you want to post something on our subreddit?
Yeah.
Create a subreddit with information or something. Just copy and paste it from those other groups or whatever.
Sure.
Because I know you're super busy with all of that.
Yeah, I could do that. And then and so you're Andrew. So you're thinking like 3 weeks from now.
Well, no, I mean, if you need to take a week off, I mean, I'm still gonna be able to do the show away from home. I'll take my laptop and everything.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask you. I was wondering if.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can do it on the 15th then.
Yeah. You can update it. Yeah, I'll be here and you can update us, and yeah, I'll try and and maybe we can cover, because I want to cover that article. I'll give you a copy of it this week. So.
Right. So okay. So the story on the Carpenters voting down 3 contract proposals, so tentative agreements. So like that was in June, July, and then this month in August. And so so basically the June one already had a 30-day contract extension, and as I understand it, it was from the reasoning was for COVID and to complete a survey with the 13,000 members or so. And so that was the first tentative agreement. It was rejected 76%. It had some language issues that, in my own opinion, were not so bad. Like some language changes, I mean. And so the language changes, like it was like, we're going to celebrate MLK Day. Ironically, most trade unions in the Seattle area already celebrate MLK Day. And so they have a big march every year for Martin Luther King Day. And it's like, I mean, I think it's about 15,000 people will be involved in that march, and most carpenters are not able to be involved. Like maybe there'll be like a handful of business agents and that kind of thing, but I mean, I've been there in some years where there were no carpenters at all, not even business agents or officers that would go there. And so that was one of the things proposed, and there's a couple other things, like there would be some more anti-discrimination language in the contract, and I think one was like some dry shack improvements or something, and like I don't think those are bad things to have in the contract, even though there weren't really much details with like the dry shack or the anti-discrimination language, and then but the total wage package was like a little over $8 over 3 years, and so for years the carpentry trade, like total package, has basically failed to keep up with the mechanical trades, like HVAC and the electricians and the plumbers, who we work with, and so that was voted down 76%. I run the biggest opposition page, so group page for the Carpenters in Western Washington, which was called the Western Washington Carpenters Walkout. The time is now, and that was started in 2018, which grew to like 1,800, and it dropped down to like 1,670 or something, and then with the new contract, it's increased again. Like I think right now we're at like we're just a little under 2,000 members right now. And so anyway, like TA2 came about in between TA1 and TA2. The business reps started hammering out job sites, going to job sites and stumping for a yes vote on TA2. And one of those job sites happened to be the Microsoft job, which is like the biggest job on the whole entire West Coast, as I understand it, like, or maybe one of the biggest jobs. It's got like 9 tower cranes, just tower cranes, like not including the mobile cranes, on one job site. And so it's pretty huge because they're trying to modernize the entire Microsoft campus, and you can even find it on Microsoft's website. And so basically there's business agents that are trying to go out there to convince the Microsoft carpenters that TA2 was worth voting for. And the Microsoft carpenters were, or not, I'm not there, but they were organized by a job steward there who was strongly opposed to the contract. And they were having, basically, they were talking about this pretty openly, it seems, like at lunch and whatnot. They have a humongous laydown for like at least 500 workers. And so anyway, they, the business rep came and said, look, if you guys do not vote for this, he said something along the lines of, if you guys do not vote for this contract, then you're going to lose market share, and we're going to end up like New York City or St. Louis. And so basically you're going to price yourselves out of the market. So he's basically threatening all these carpenters with their jobs. And that, like, I think that's probably what infuriated them. And they literally told that business agent to get the fuck out. And it was, I think it got quite hostile. I mean, I don't think it was physical, but I mean, I'm pretty sure there was like basically a lot of cursing and get the hell out of here. And his name's, the business agent's name's James Sines. And so fast forward a little bit, like maybe a few more days or a week, the council had this big meeting and part of it was on Zoom, and part of it was like, I think they rented out like one of those giant halls in the like ballrooms in the Hilton in SeaTac, which is over by the airport in Seattle. And so I attend that, and not many guys attended physically to the SeaTac meeting. It was like me and maybe a 1 or 2 dozen more guys that showed up. And I'm usually pretty quiet at these meetings. I usually just take notes and just listen, and I might ask a question or two. But Evelyn Shapiro was leading that. She had she's basically our EST, and she had I think the head of the bargaining committee with her, as well as like the 2 rank and file bargaining committee members who I think both of them were like general foremen or superintendents or something like that. And so so anyway, she gets on stage and she basically repeats exactly what Jim Sines said at Microsoft, which I'm sure irritated a lot of people. And I said, hey, like, I heard what happened at Microsoft. I mean, I got up to speak, and I said, hey, I heard what happened at Microsoft with James Sines going over to the Microsoft campus and stumping for this yes vote and telling people they're going to basically lose their jobs if they don't vote for this contract. And I said, hey, that's voter intimidation. And I want to know who ordered him to go to the Microsoft campus to go stump for and who's ordering these other business agents to go to different job sites to stump for a yes vote, because it's pissing a lot of people off. And there needs to be some accountability there. And I think that business agent should be reprimanded. And that was kind of like a question toward her, kind of knowing the answer, because I knew that she's their boss. And so she responded, look, Evelyn responded, like, I'm the supervisor for James Sines and these other business agents, and I don't think they did anything wrong, and that I ordered them to go to these job sites to push for a yes vote because the bargaining committee said that we should have a yes vote. The bargaining committee that she controls, by the way, and so they will not be reprimanded, and that a union cannot be neutral. And so she basically exposed herself. And then she continued by saying, look, I know the other trades are making this or that, but I'm sorry to tell you, and I know a lot of people are going to be angry over this, but Carpenters ain't nothing special. And when she said that on the Zoom call, that was probably like the straw that broke the camel's back, because that really put a fire under the ass of like everybody I know. Like everybody was pissed about it, and it was basically a Freudian slip. And she immediately tried to, like when she realized how mad people were and they were, angry comments in the Zoom meeting and such, she started to backtrack, but it was too late. Everybody saw what was going on. And she's making like $300,000 a year. Like her superior 3 years ago, Doug Tweedy, who basically was EST for almost 20 years, he gave himself like a huge, substantial raise from $170,000 to $320,000, and she inherited that raise. And in fact, she was one of the delegates that voted for that raise. And so, and she took over that position like almost immediately as soon as he left. And I think he left because of the contract. But basically, that was a huge mistake on her part. And that really built up a lot of momentum. The second TA was voted down 52%, at which point I basically said it here on the, when I was giving my report on the Marxist line, and also I gave a post to Western Washington Carpenters Walkout, which I think had like 1,900 members at that time, and now it's at like 2K. But I think I gave a report and I said basically, look, it's 52%. They're looking at carving out another 3% of the vote here to win. And so what they did is they did mass they, as in the council with the business reps and Evelyn and such, they spent a lot of money. Like they spent $30,000 on postcards. They had like robo dials. They called in business reps from different states who aren't even anywhere near here. Like we had business reps from Montana coming here to stump for the vote, and personally calling guys to get them to vote for the contract. And so like all these, so they were spending a lot of money trying to pull in like guys that weren't voting, for example, so that way they could stack the vote in favor of a yes vote. And that's how they got their 52%, because it went from like 3,500 members voting to like 5,000 to 6,000 members voting, which is unheard of as long as I've been in the union. And I've been in for like about 15 years now. And so so anyway, so TA2 got rejected. TA3 comes last week on a, not this last week, but the week before last, I guess, early August on a Thursday. And so they come out with TA2 and TA3, I mean, and then TA3 was like almost a carbon copy of TA2. So it was like a copy and paste job. And the only language, there was only one like language change, and the language change is they got rid of a clause that said that they would not reallocate more than 50% from wages to pension and healthcare. So they got rid of the entire clause, which means 100% in theory, right? And so that was it. And everybody saw right through the changes. Like there were guys saying, look, here's TA2 and then here's TA3, and it's the exact fucking thing. So what the hell were you bargaining over, right? And so I called for an emergency rally within 24 hours, and 105 guys showed up, and and then I asked guys to stream it and live stream it on Facebook, so Facebook Live, and put photos or whatever, and to help other people realize, hey, we are rallying and marching over this thing. And then a lot of guys organized on their own, like at Microsoft and such. We had Microsoft guys come all the way from Redmond out to Seattle, which it isn't very far distance wise, but I mean, you live in New York, you get from one part of town to the other. It takes a while to get over there, during rush hour and such after work. And so this is a big deal. You said wage concessions didn't save the unions in New York City. They accelerated the process of deunionization. Yeah, I agree. I basically said that, and I've been saying that. Yeah, I oppose wage concessions. And so anyway, so after Friday, that was a success. I mean, I expected like maybe 12 to 20 people would show up. We had 105. And then on Monday, we had 200 show up. Wednesday and Friday, it kind of tapered off, but Wednesday is basically a hump day. And then the vote was on Friday. I think it finished on Thursday. No, the vote was finished Thursday afternoon at like 5 p.m. And then so Friday was a rally post vote. And but like we were in a Zoom meeting when we got the voting results. So like and there was a lot of guys cheering. The chat blew up cheering, with everybody basically telling the reps, fuck you guys. And so yeah, like and the TA3, it was basically the same percentage of voters, but we got 60% of the vote. So our side increased by what? Like, so from 2 to 60, that'd be like 8. So we got another 8%. And then on Thursday, I had an interview with some podcast, Democracy Watch News, I think some right-wing podcast called me up for interview, because I've been getting guys in our group that are just sending reporters to me to telling me, hey, interview with this guy or that guy. And so so they I don't think they realized they were interviewing a communist, and then getting my opinion, but they put it all out there. And yeah, and I had to use every muscle not to tell them off. And then on Friday, I had an interview with Cairo 7, which is a local TV station. I think hopefully that'll get the attention of the other local TV stations. Like we actually we marched our rally to Q13 News, which is, I think it's Fox, and they're non-union, and so they continued to ignore us. Like they said they were going to cover us to get us away from their building, but they basically completely ignored us. But Cairo 7 did come out and they gave me I think a pretty fair shake, which is what we showed earlier in the show today. Yeah, and then moving on, it's like we want to get a platform going. We got a Discord going now, so we have a Discord that we're trying to build up. There's going to be a Zoom meeting tonight that we're going to be involved in, and so we'll be basically hearing what the bargaining committee has to say on that. They said that they're going to give us another survey, which I think is like a total stall tactic, but whatever, bring it on. Like, give us another survey. I plan on having another rally over at Microsoft, and that'll be the first Microsoft rally. We'll see what that turns out like. I have no idea. Microsoft has a lot of workers, and the question is, well, are they gonna like stay after work for another 30 minutes to rally up or not? And I have no idea, whether they'll do it or not. I mean, it's gonna be, as far as convenience goes, you can't say it's a convenience issue when it's going to be right outside their job site. Like, whether other workers can make it to Microsoft is a totally different story. But they were asking for a rally, and so I said, yeah, let's figure out a way to do a rally out there, even though parking is going to be a total bitch and you got to walk like 20 blocks. But I mean, it won't be a bitch for them. It'll be a bitch for us, like for the guys from out of town that are trying to go support them. And so we'll have that. And then on Monday, there's supposed to be a union meeting. I'm going to try to pass resolutions that says that we don't want any more extensions, that we don't want Evelyn to pass any more extensions, and that we're looking at, we want 21 over 3. So $21 over 3 years, which would bring our total package from something like, I think it's 65, and then I'll catch us up much closer to the electricians and the plumbers, which are currently at like the $90 to $100 range, total package. And the news, one thing about the news that helped to bring them out was they're deathly afraid that we're going to go on strike. Like, absolutely. Like, and I've said, I've had to be careful not to personally call for a wildcat myself. I mean, basically, because that's it's a good way to get expelled. But they're afraid of us shutting down the state for sure. And I'm glad that I got on the news and I emphasized that because that's what got us on the news, for one. Otherwise, they wouldn't give a shit about us. And then for two, I want other carpenters to realize that, like, us threatening a strike, if we're willing to do that, if we can carry that out, that's actually giving us a lot of leverage. And so hopefully guys will recognize this. A lot of carpenters are, I mean, as you probably know, Greg, they're scared, and yeah, they might be big guys that do forms and that kind of thing, and framing and, work on cores and all that crap. But a lot of them are scared. Like, I mean, when I suggested we march in the street, they all wanted to walk on the sidewalk. And this is like 100 grown men, right? And they're like, well, we don't want to break the rules or anything or make anybody mad. It's like, you guys are the only guys in this town, like, that are scared to walk into streets, like the little elementary school teachers, and they'll walk in the streets before you guys, like, and it just goes to show, like, how spanked they've become over the years. It's really sad. Constantly begging for, it's just, it's become a union of beggars, really, and begging for scraps. And I've had a couple, more than one carpenter, and of course in my own career, like, say, look, the other trades don't even see us as a real union anymore. And I think, this, understanding that we're not getting respect. I mean, the respect, I think, is even more important for a lot of guys than the money. Like, they don't, I think a lot of them don't care if they'll even lose money in a strike, but it's like they want, the respect and dignity back, because the other trades not respecting us, our own EST not disrespecting us, and all these business agents disrespecting us. I mean, that's a big deal for a lot of people, like to just be constantly disrespected like that. And and basically you're not nothing special, and you guys are just fucking wood pickers and sliver pickers and wood butchers and blah blah blah. And I think that's like one of the big things that's really getting to people. So anyway, hopefully that answers some of your questions. If you got anything more, let me know, because this will be it for a while.
All right, sounds good. All right, so I think that's about it for our show today. And if you have any questions about the strike, you can, I don't know, Art, maybe post something on our subreddit, and then we'll update you next week.
Yeah, I'll post some of my own notes on that on the subreddit, and yeah, and I've been pretty busy trying to organize all this crap. So
yeah, so and then like we said last couple weeks, probably in the fall we're gonna start retooling our show a little bit. And when Art's done with this union business, we're gonna start kind of trying to retool it and do a couple other different things on the show. So if you do have any ideas or suggestions, make sure you post it on our subreddit or get a hold of us through that or Facebook.
yeah, absolutely. If you want us to cover something, feel free to speak up, and we have the subreddit there to contact us. Or you could do it through Facebook. I mean, we've been trying to be pretty open with the show, and to make it a resource for comrades in the community.